Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hello and welcome to the Earthworks podcast. Very excited to be here today because I'm on location with a good buddy, our guest for today, Mr. Greg D'Antonio at Concord Country Club. Greg, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
All right. Yeah, well, thanks for having me here. I'm real psyched to be sitting here. We're in the men's grill kind of hanging out, and we get to have this cool chat about you and about Concord. So I like to get started with these talks with kind of just a little bit of background about you. And so let me ask, I know, but I want to let the listeners know, as I understand, you're a Pennsylvania guy. Is that right?
Yep. Born in Malvern, PA, not far from where your boss grew up.
That's
right down the street.
Yeah, that's right. Joel went to, Great Valley?
So did I.
Yeah, okay.
A year or two after him, maybe. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Okay, so you're from Malvern, and you're also a Penn Stater, right?
Yes, sir.
When did you graduate from Penn State?
2004 from the four-year program.
Yep. Okay. So you're 3 years older than me. I graduated in 2007. So we didn't really cross paths out there. But when I met you, you were working at Chester Valley for Dave Vizican. Mm-hmm. And I started with Earthworks in 2009. But shortly after that, you came over here to Concord. I was trying to think. When did you start here?
2010. December 2010 is when I started. So.
All right, great. So let's let everyone know, for all of the big golf course architect enthusiasts, Concord is a William Flynn golf course, right?
That's correct.
When did he design and build this place?
So it opened in 1927. It was an original 18-hole William Flynn design. During the 70s, the independent owner, the single owner at the time, sold some land and hired Jeffrey Cornish to build 4 holes on the back 9. And then in 1999, Jim Nagel and Ron Force of Force Design were brought in to do a master plan. And since then, we did a master plan update in 2016 to try and make the non-William Flynn holes more characteristic of what he would have designed, almost 100 years ago now.
Okay, wow, yeah. So this is an 18-hole golf course, or 27, or
18? Okay,
it's 18. So those 4 other holes that were built, what happened there?
So some 4 holes were bulldozed, and it's where State Farm was, out on 202 and Route 1, and then 4 new holes were built. So there was always 18 holes, but as an independent owner, I imagine he got an offer he couldn't refuse for that land that was fronting a road, and then use some land on the backside that was off the beaten path a little bit more.
But those couple holes did not kind of carry the same signature that the original Flynn design did? No,
they were less than great golf holes, and really the goal of the master plan that we're near completing this fall was to try and improve those holes, as well as make everything more characteristic of what Flynn would have done. And Jim and Ron are experts in Flynn designs.
Yes, I know that where I worked before Earthworks at Lehigh Country Club, that John Chassard works with Ron Force as well on his Flynn golf course there on their master plan. So there's a number of Flynns in Eastern PA, right?
A lot.
Yeah, just right here we've got Rolling Green.
Mm-hmm. Manufacturers.
Oh, yeah, manufacturers. Yeah. Lancaster,
he worked on Huntington Valley with Toomey. So, yeah, there's a lot in this area. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, excellent. So you mentioned the master plan, and I guess that started in 1999, you're saying?
Yeah, so the club, I guess, started in 1999 and did some work in 2000, and then really didn't do any more work until 2012. As you know, 2008 hit, and clubs were just struggling to stay above water. 2012, we tried to finish the original plan, so to speak, and then in 2016, we brought Jim Nagel back in and did what he calls a master plan update, and that was some additional work based upon things that had changed over what had almost been 20 years at that point.
Okay, well, let's see. That's what I really want the bulk of this conversation to be about, is all the work that you've done here and kind of how you've gotten it done. I'd like if you could impart some wisdom on us, the golf course enthusiasts, but maybe also some things that you learned the hard way, because really you've been doing this work since the day you got here. So yes, that's the way I'd like this conversation to go. But let's start out with a little bit more about yourself. How did you get into this whole crazy business of golf?
So my uncle was a golf course mechanic for 35 years, both at Aronimink and White Manor, which are Malvern and Newtown Square, close to where I grew up. My dad went to Villanova, and then he went to Villanova grad school. And while he was in grad school, he worked at White Manor in the mornings. And then my grandfather retired, and he also worked at Aronimink. And so I guess the three of them at a young age kind of thought that I was outdoorsy, and as my parents says, can't sit still. And so kind of started this when I was 16, just turned 16. I started at White Manor, working for Don Brown. I spent 5 summers there through high school and college. And
were your grandfather and father and uncle still in the business at that time?
No, it was just like a stopgap thing before my grandfather really wanted to retire, and my dad got a job in his profession.
What does he do?
He just retired in 2020 from SEPTA. He was a city planner.
Excellent.
So,
well, yeah, there's probably a lot of overlaps there. I mean, you're kind of you're organizing big land areas and considering how the public can utilize them and everything like that. That's
absolutely.
Really that's interesting. Okay, so but more about yourself. So you started real young, 16 years old, and you just kept going from there?
Yeah, like I said, I spent 5 summers there. Then I did an internship in 2003 at Marion Golf Club, and was fortunate enough to get an assistant position working for Dave, as you mentioned, at Chester Valley when I graduated in 2004, which ironically is right across the street from where I went to elementary school. And, I actually, as a 4th and 5th grader, they had a senior tour event there at that time. And, we went over, even got golf clinics from Chichi Rodriguez. So,
oh, that's cool.
A lot of people have to bounce around in this business and move around and relocate. To this point, I've been fortunate that I've stayed local. My parents still live in the house I grew up in, and I guess I'm about 12 miles from them now.
It's very cool, and for all of you around the country, this is really just a beautiful area of southeast Pennsylvania, kind of west of Philadelphia a little bit, in kind of the rolling hills of farm country, and it's really a nice area to grow up. So then you were with Dave over at Chester Valley for a number of years, I guess. Well, maybe like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
And then got this great opportunity here at a classic top 100 sort of golf course here.
Not top 100 yet. But,
okay, we're working.
Who knows?
There.
Maybe one day.
It's classic golf,
it is,
and
yes.
It's really a beautiful piece of property. But you've made it a lot nicer in that you kind of brought back that old golf look to the place. It was a little overgrown, as I remember.
Absolutely.
So for example, you've been probably taking out trees for the last decade, and
yeah, since I got here, really. I mean, we've taken out over 2,500 trees. About 85% of them we've done with in-house labor. And it's just been an ongoing thing. I mean, we started around the greens to get more sun on the greens, then evolved to declining evergreens. Fast forward 5-7 years, a lot of the ash trees are now declining. We've done extensive removals and clearing areas out and trying to open vistas. We've implemented 24 acres of fine fescue. And I'd like to add that we have planted about 150 trees, some specimen trees that hopefully will each year progresses, become more impactful to the playability of the course.
Yeah, they're in good locations.
Absolutely.
They're like you say, they're specimen trees. They're there by themselves. They're not overcrowding any areas. And the existing trees that you have here, I know you've limbed up really well so that you do gain those lines of sight, and a lot of that underneath there is where you've put in a lot of these beautiful fine fescue areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're fortunate with some rolling terrain, and I always envisioned them kind of accentuating the property and the terrain, and they seem to have. I think people were skeptical at first that they were going to be just weeds, but for the most part, you don't find a lot of balls in them. We do, spend a significant amount of money to maintain them, to keep them weed free and from getting too thick. And most of the members seem to think that they've been a nice addition to the property.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've mentioned the members, and I've mentioned to you that you're an excellent communicator because I follow you on all the social media platforms, and I guess when you're doing work on their property for 10 years straight or more, you kind of have to be in front of it. You have to be constantly talking with them and letting the membership be prepared for what you're trying to accomplish. And you do a really good job at that. So please elaborate on your strategy on how to communicate with the membership.
So I think it's multifaceted. I mean, you've got members of all ages here, right? So sending out a monthly email update works for some, maybe some of the senior members. I also try and use social media. Specifically, I have a Facebook account just for Concord members that I try and post what's going on. The big push certainly was selling this master plan. It wasn't easy. As you said, it's their golf course. Change isn't always easy for some people. And we certainly were going to change a lot, and so the communication was important, I think, and probably the biggest factor in the success or failure of any project. Certainly, as we look back now, as we're coming down the home stretch of this project, I think it was a key to the success of it was communicating, from even simple things like being available, being visible, playing with members, which I try to do often. And I even, in terms of the project, had open meetings, which were met with mixed reviews. Some went better than others, depending on if people were for or against it. But at the end of the day, we had an 80% approval rating in the vote for the project. And probably if the ones that voted no, you put some truth serum in them, they would say that, they're happy we did it.
Yeah, they're happy at this point. They love the results. So yeah, I guess a part of what you do is, like you said, you play out here with the members. You participate in the tournaments. You were just telling me before we started recording that that you've got the member tournament coming up at this weekend, and you're going to be playing in that.
No, I won't be playing in that.
Oh, okay. No. But you're available.
Yeah, try and be around for it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, you have a number of good assistants here as well. You include them in on some of this communication or no, or how does that work?
Yeah, I've been very blessed to have very talented assistants really throughout my entire tenure here, some of which have moved on to their own course or their own property. I'm certainly blessed right now to have 3 of them. And yeah, one thing that Dave did for me at Chester Valley, really at the age of 22 was to really incorporate me into all of that type of stuff, whether it be monthly communications or attending green committee meetings or leading green committee meetings. So I've always tried to carry that on because I think that was certainly beneficial for me, and I'm very thankful that he did that for me. So yeah, our assistants now, I encourage them to play. I encourage them to attend all the committee meetings. I try to keep them in the loop the best I can about what's going on, and I also tell members too. I mean, they're there to answer questions as well. I'm only one person, so if they see them, feel free to approach them if you have a question about what's going on.
Yeah, that's very important, and I think a lot of it is just about being present and being available, like you're saying, and you keep all those guys in the loop on that. It's really special. So now let's talk about we talk about this kind of project in like a grand scale. You say like we've been working on the project for 10 years, but let's kind of get into some of the specifics because you've done a number of different things here. You talked about the 2,500 trees that you've taken out, but that's really was just the start of opening up some space. You've rebuilt golf holes. So let's start with 2012. How did this start in your tenure here?
So I actually walked into a position where there was literally bunkers that construction began, and so the biggest thing then, and that was the winter of 2010 into 2011, was to just get them playable for the 2011 season. If you think back that far, that was pretty much a snow-covered winter.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of started in terms of just trying to clean things up.
Because they were like halfway through a bunker project.
Yeah, they were literally just exposed soil, yeah. And then tried to transition into just trying to make things more playable, and then really trying to take a step back and look at a broader view. And let's say we have 191 acres here at Concord. Let's try and make this the best 18-hole golf course we can. And that was kind of what I tasked Jim with when we brought him back. We have a longtime golf professional, Mike Moses, who was very involved as well. He's a fantastic player in the area and certainly knowledgeable on all this stuff, and certainly not afraid to give me his opinion as well. So that was kind of the initial team. And then I've also been fortunate in my 11 years here. I've only had 2 greens chairs. So that continuity has really helped. Both my greens chairs have been very involved and very supportive of it as well.
Okay, so you get started with these bare soil exposed bunkers back 2011. Were you put in new drainage? And were you doing some of this new bunker technology back then?
At that point, we were, like I said, just trying to make them playable. I mean, we went from bunkers that would hold water for days if you didn't pump them to, we were just trying to show the membership and the board at that time what you could have. As things have evolved, we started to use liners over the last 5 years. As you've tried to balance the playability and the aesthetics, certainly the high sand flashes now. The standing on the tee and that wow factor has become important, so we've probably raised some sand lines up more than we did initially, and as a result of that, used liners. But the club's also now in a better financial position to spend money to do it right. When we first started, we only had 205 golf members coming out of the recession of 2008. We now have 315 with a 20-person waiting list. So the means to do things a little bit
the right way.
Correct. Yeah, we've tried to transition from that. Not that we tried to do them the wrong way at first, but I would say we tried to be as cost effective as possible, just to try and. There was just so much that needed to be done. I tell people all the time, like, if I would have known how bad this was before I took the job, I probably wouldn't have taken the job. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of work that you were tasked with. So, but you got right to it. Now, so that's opening up the spring of 2011. You were able to make these bunkers playable and you start that golf season out. But you still had plenty of more work on the docket. What were you planning at that point?
So at that point, that second winter, we went in and we cleaned out all the bunkers that Jim Nagel had done in 1999.
Okay.
Their drainage had started to fail because they used a very fine gravel. So it was almost like the pipe was cemented. So we removed all that, put new sand in, and we did have some help there with Mountain Golf and cleaning out the bunkers. And then also in 2012, we regrassed our 7th green. I actually made a temporary green and convinced the club to let us close that green in August. It was contaminated on the surrounds with Bermuda grass. So we did about 30,000 square feet of fumigation. That was kind of right at the tail end of when methyl bromide was available. So that was kind of the urgency I expressed to try and remove all that Bermuda. And it had been a lot of annual POA that just seemed to die each year and patched with sod and layers of sod. And so
The Bermuda was in the surrounds, you're saying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is you're right on you're right on the border of Delaware. We're in that kind of area where you find a lot of common Bermuda. Because I think, as I've been told, like in the 70s there was kind of a push to get more Bermuda in this area of PA, and it's just natural too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do spend some resources in removing the common Bermuda out of the rough. Ironically, what we found is, going back 8-10 years, a lot of the evergreens where we removed the trees and either we ground the stump or dug out the stump, as that stump or the roots started to rot, you're seeing a lot of Bermuda encroachment there.
Interesting.
And my theory is, as those roots are rotting, the soil's heating up, and that's where the Bermuda's thriving. So we went in there, and we've actually now started to basamid some areas and rough and sod them, trying to clean out all the roots, add topsoil, amend the soil. So yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Very interesting. Let's see. Now about these bunkers, when you were kind of having to stitch it all together on a budget, anything that you can impart on us as to some things that really worked for you, some tricks that you found were useful. I know right now you're seeing a lot of guys use sod liners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do any of that?
We did not, no. Right now we're using capillary concrete in the bunkers that we've redone, and to date have had a lot of success. I mean, we're coming off a week here where we've had what they call a 1 in 200 year storm.
We had the Henri hurricane that probably at my house dumped 5 inches, and then a week later we had the Ida, which dumped another 9 inches. I mean, the numbers were similar here. I know
we're a little less here. You're about 5 inches the second time.
Okay,
around. But you go 10 miles north, they were at that 9 or 10 inch thing. So,
they're getting hammered.
Yeah. So.
And Flynn Design, I know traditionally up at the greens complex always would have a side of the green that was more flat and a side of the green with more flashes. And you would see some pretty big flashes in these bunkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty big faces. So the drainage is awfully important. Okay, so we were at you regrassing this 7th green,
mm-hmm.
and when you regrassed, you did the methyl bromide, and you seeded?
We did seed that. Now all the other ones we've sodded.
I thought so.
That was the only one we seeded, and it just took a long time to mature. We live in an impatient society anymore, and
mm-hmm.
members want that instant impact, and we just felt that working with Coombs Sod Farm and kind of getting the specs where we want them, and the dilution with sand, because they're top dressing it for us, the sods work better. But for that first green, we did seed it again. I think part of it was a cost thing at that time. 2012, not really the club not in the financial position it is in today.
So, first of all, it's bent grass.
What A1A4.
A1A4. Okay, the old Penn State grass.
Mm-hmm.
Super aggressive. Super kind of thatch producing. But let's see. So you threw the seed down what time of year? August, September?
We closed the green on August 1st, and so by the time we got it methyl bromide, it had let everything air out. It was about the 15th of August when we seeded. Yeah.
Still had some heat.
We did, yeah. I mean, it's certainly August 15th now. 10 years later, seems to be a lot hotter than it was at that point. But
right.
Yeah, it was a good time to get germination. We had germination in about a week. So.
And you were playing on that green the next spring.
We were. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. All right, so that was just the first green that you did. You moving on now. We're in what, 2012 or 13?
Yeah, 2013. We finished the bunkers that had not been touched in probably 40 or 50 years. They did a small assessment to the membership, and where they built 2 paddle tennis courts, as well as finished at that time was 20 bunkers, and we had Mott and Golf come in and do the shaping. And our staff did the rest of the in-house work, laying the sod, installing the sand, installing the drainage, and stuff like that. So yeah, that started in November 2013, and at that point, all the bunkers were done. And at that point, we just continued to regrass a green annually until 2016, when we made the push for the master plan update which we're able to start in 2018.
So you regrassed a green every fall, right through to that point. Okay, but you were sodding at that point.
We were, yeah. So I think 2 more greens we were able to methyl bromide, and then at that point, and then we've used basamid. So we've got 10 bentgrass greens now. Pre-COVID, we were going to have a 9-hole golf course in the winter and finish, but COVID's kind of changed that just because we want to keep the course as playable as possible at a time when people are probably
playing a lot of golf
and staying close to home.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you've mentioned that your rounds are like everyone else. They continue to be way up.
Yeah, we were up 30% from 2019 to 2020. And we're up another 20% in 2021 already. So
wow.
This is beginning of September, we're already at 21,000 rounds.
Oh, it's huge.
Probably, depending on how the weather in the fall is, probably 28 to 30 at this point.
Yeah, it's excellent. Now, let's see. So, this is not by any means an Earthworks commercial, but you did use some Earthworks in those regrassing and that establishment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What did you find success with?
So anytime we put sod down, we're using Renovate and the Micro Rising.
Yeah, the Micro 333.
Started to incorporate more. We've always used the Renovate, and that's been great. As I said, our time windows are very limited to, complete the work before winter and then get things open in the spring. Our opening tournament is mid-April, usually the second or third weekend of April, and we've always had to have it open by then. And those products have been great in establishing roots and density and allowing it to withstand the traffic. Because once we open those greens, there's really been no holding back or
no time to cultivate. Yeah. You're not shutting them down for a week to do aeration.
Unfortunately, not.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Our golf schedule is beyond busy. So.
No doubt. So, let's talk about some. Now, you've done some tee to green work as well in this project, right? Was it hole 14? Correct. That you rebuilt entirely?
Yes. So hole 14 and hole 15 are entirely new.
Okay.
New holes. So.
They were probably some of those two of those 4 holes that were redone in the 70s. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about standing on the tee there, and what was Jim and Ron's idea, and how did you implement it to really kind of bring this and tie it into the rest of the Flynn golf course?
So as we look at the goals of what this master plan was, hole 14 was obviously our weakest hole. For most people, when I interviewed for the position and talk about Concord in the area, it was always like, oh, it's a good golf course, but they got that one hole in the back, and that was the 14th hole. It was almost like a boomerang par 5 and about 600 yards at the time, but it was all blind shots, and it just held up pace of play. You'd lose balls when you hit good shots, and so that was kind of the black eye on the course. So, one of the goals was to really try and remedy that, and what we came up with, or what they came up with, all of us working together, was a 385-yard par 4. Another one of the goals of the master plan was to have some variety in the par 3s. So, one of the things that Concord kind of was kind of the same par 3s where you'd hit the same club on all 4 holes.
200-yard par 3s, yeah.
So adding variety. And so our 15th hole then became what was going to be our shorter par 3. And so we talked about Jim Nagel's, expertise with Flynn. His design for both of those holes was used from a lot of, I guess, more well-known Flynn holes at other area courses. So the green complex at 14, he used a whole bunch of different, combination of characteristics, a lot of which I went and looked at. And then 15 is, as we talk about famous Flynn holes, Shinnecock Hills and Long Island. It is very similar to the 11th hole there.
Okay.
Which is a famous short par 3. It's actually flipped in terms of the bunkering, and less severe, being that it wasn't built 100 years ago to have more pin locations. So,
right.
Those were complete in 2018, 2018 and 2019 respectively.
So that new par 4 on 14, it's an uphill hole, I if I remember right.
Slightly, yeah.
Okay, and does it still dogleg?
No, I would say if anything, it veers to the right.
Okay.
So we did a lot of tree removal and subsequently rock removal.
Right.
To get that hole in there. And so, yeah, it's like I said, it's an uphill, shorter par 4. But as you look at the back 9 as a whole, it's a little bit of a transition hole. 11 is a very challenging par 3. 12 and 13 are very difficult par 4s. And then as you get over to 16, as we start that work this fall, it will be a long par 5, which plays into the wind predominantly, with a Hell's Half Acre complex, very similar to the 7th hole at Pine Valley, another course that Flynn did a lot of work on. So,
I didn't realize that Flynn was at Pine Valley.
I believe he finished the last few holes after Crump passed away.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, wow. Yeah, this is really cool. So, So now you mentioned that this winter you're going into 16. Is that a new regrassing as well?
Yep. Yeah, so we'll close on the 26th of October and expand and regrass the green. And then Motton will be in to do some shaping on the bunker work. We'll see how their other projects progress, but probably sometime in early winter with the goal of having it open in April of 2022.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that you're thinking then that this spring it's all done. Almost?
The master plan?
Yeah.
So that master plan update we completed in 2016 will be for the most part done. There's still some back tees. There's still a few ash trees that are hanging on that as they die with the emerald ash borer or ash yellow, we'll add some fairway bunkers and a few forward tees for the ladies as well. But the majority of the work is mostly done, yes.
Okay, that's great news. Let's talk a little agronomics, because you're talking about all this new grassing that you're doing. I imagine that the old greens were dominated by POA.
Correct.
So at this point you'll have all A1, A4 bentgrass greens.
Mostly, yeah. There'll be a few POA ones that we'll try and finish once this COVID settles out and we can pick a winner and finish it. But yeah, kind of in a holding pattern right now, kind of like the world is.
Yeah, no doubt, of course. Do you now you also have difficult water here, believe it or not.
It's not great.
It's not great,
terrible.
And it was kind of surprising to me. Like it's far worse than you typically see in this area. So I imagine that the bentgrass can handle those kind of high sodium a little bit better than the POA can. Is that right? Who knows?
Yeah, it's a constant battle. Certainly the drier we get,
the more you're relying on irrigation.
Yep, and the worse things can be. So it's constant maintenance with trying to keep the sodium flushed. Using a lot of different products. We have acid injection in our irrigation.
You have high bicarbonates too. Yeah.
We do, yeah. So the acid hopefully allows the bicarbonates to be reduced for us to flush everything and try and do deep and infrequent watering. We sit along a major highway and we take a ton of their runoff. And up until State Farm, which was above us, their headquarters just closed and moved to Texas. We took their effluent as well. So we were.
Do you know this is not the first time I've had this conversation about being next to an insurance company's property, because they salt like mad, right? They're like mitigating risk, and you just get a lot of a runoff in the wintertime from them salting the parking lot.
Yep. And it's amazing. I mean, not even through the irrigation sometimes. I mean, when we do testing together on the soils in May, a lot of times you guys will come back screaming like your sodium's high. And it's just where we sit, and then, as snow melts and runs through the golf course, I feel like we take everybody else around us as junk.
You do.
But nobody seems to give us any sympathy financially or anything when we ask for a favor.
No. part
It
of
is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is, and part of that should be one of the the societal functions of a golf course. That we do play a role for the greater community, and part of that is to filter out runoff, but poor runoff water and all that stuff. Major carbon sequester golf courses are, and you're building topsoil, all that really important stuff. And you're doing all that really well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really cool. Okay, so let's see. Does Concord, golf schedule wise, do you guys host big events here? Do you host any kind of statewide stuff, things like that?
We've hosted, so we're very close to Delaware, about 5 miles. So we hosted the Delaware Open, I guess 2 years ago. Hosted a lot of Philadelphia section PGA events. As I mentioned, I have a great relationship with the pro, so anytime he can play his home course, hopefully he plays better.
Yeah.
We've also hosted a lot of Golf Association of Philadelphia events, so
Yes.
I feel we've been very generous in taking these outside events, and I've always tried to, from a staff perspective, put a priority on them, because I think as we try and bring good people in and develop them and help them move to other courses, if players from around the area come in and have a good experience at Concord, anytime in the future they're looking to hire, then maybe they'll consider someone on the staff here to move up. So I always try and stress the importance of them, specifically the assistants, because I say that every day is a job interview for them, but
Absolutely.
those are could potentially be a big job interview.
Yeah, you're also very generous with the Superintendents Association. I've played in some really fun events over here, and again, like you're a golf guy that's come up through this, and you understand the major importance of the networking and the camaraderie and developing good assistants that go out and get good jobs. It's a major thing. We all support each other, and you do that, very well.
Thanks.
Yeah. So cool. Let's see, any other things that you can kind of maybe help? You've done all this work. I think it's interesting maybe that you've had success with a lot of sodding greens. That's kind of unique. It's not something you see often, but you've been forced to do it because of timelines, and you've done it successfully. Did you have to do any extra aerifications? Did you have to monitor the way the sod was grown on the farm? I heard you mention that they were top dressing that sod. You fill us in.
Yeah, certainly, sodding greens is a challenge. I would say maybe I do it a little bit differently. I don't use wash sod.
Okay.
I actually, I kind of look at it in two different parts. It's getting through year one.
Okay.
When you're going to have all those footprints on immature turf, and then, moving forward, year one on. So I prefer to have that little soil interface in year one, because I feel that can withstand the foot traffic and the rolling during that first year. It kind of, absorbs as the thatch starts to build up. And then at the end of that first year, we'll go in and, in that beginning November, really beat that green up to try and remove a lot of that interface and try to make it more homogenized in the root zone.
So you really consider that the end of the first growing season as your time to now try to make those root zones mix.
Correct. Yeah.
Before that, you kind of baby it and just let it establish.
I don't know that we baby it. I mean, it's not like we're putting things, with different mowing heights or anything like that. It's more, trying to use that soil interface to get through, while it's still immature, and then really try and make it a green like the rest of them. And again, I'm not saying it's the right way to do it, but given our time constraints and stuff, it's the way we've tried to do it. I don't do a lot of hollow tining during the year. With it, I'll just do a solid tine, and I also don't top dress a lot in the heat. I've worked a lot with Steve McDonald. He's really beaten into my head that, in these new A's and G's and these, tighter bent grasses, there's not always a place for the sand to go.
They're,
So all
they're
it
too
does
tight.
is sit there, heat up the surface, and become more abrasive. And so really from the beginning of June on, we don't really top dress it unless we really think we've got good, cool weather ahead.
Okay, so yeah, you mentioned, Greg, that the top dressing, you really don't have room to let top dressing fall into these tight A1, A4 bent grasses. So rather than leaving the sand up on top and just abrasing the leaf tissue, you certainly pull back on that.
Yep, and try and do more dry jecting to try and actually get it down in there. Certainly we do that now spring and fall, April and November. Just try and keep our dilution rates up and get the sand down in there to break up that profile, specifically on the newly sodded greens. Sometimes when the dry ejectors will come in, they'll do that in like 2 directions.
Yeah, that's an excellent process, and for, like you say, the sod, like it's a great way of blending those profiles together.
Absolutely.
Now you mentioned a lot of the work that you do, all this work that you've been doing for the decade that you've been here. The majority of it's in-house. So tell me a lot about that, because it fits into what you're saying as to we have work to get done, and we have to do it kind of on a budget. So you really and you sell it to the club, right? So tell us about that.
Well, we are not, even though you joked we're top 100, we don't have the top 100 funding. So a large assessment or borrowing a ton of money, the membership just wasn't going to be on board with. So I've tried to do it, and say we're going to be efficient by doing it. We sold this master plan as saying we were not going to assess the members. So we've spaced it out over a few years to use capital dollars of capital contributions each member's already paid. So that was really what started it, but it's kind of evolved where it's allowed us to train, and retain and recruit great staff as everybody, fights for labor and stuff. We've tried to keep more guys on through the winter, so you're not laying them off and praying they come back. But as we try to, attract and grow and promote to other courses, or as they advance their career as assistants, it's been great for them to come in here, get some good experience, both using machinery and in project management, and be able to sell that to potential courses as they look to become superintendents on their own. Because again, there's 15,000 golf courses and there's only 100 top 100. So there's a much more people that have to do things on a budget than don't. And so for them, if we can get them in the interview room and they can try to sell what has been done here and they can replicate that, a potential club looking, hopefully that gives them a leg up because they have that experience.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you're giving them the experience because, like you're saying, the chances that they're going to go to a club or not a club, a golf course that they need to do work in house is much greater than the fact that they're going to go and say there's no budget, just spend as much as you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now you mentioned the staff. What are your staff numbers like? I mean, because we've got to talk about the assistants, but tell me a little bit more about your crew.
So we generally have between 18 and 20 during the season, and we'll try and keep 10 to 12 during the off season.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I think, again, things continue to evolve. The winters have been warmer, so your actual off season is shortening. As I said, we tried to do the in-house work then because we don't have time during the season. We also don't want to reduce the member experience during the season, so our window to do that is shorter. And then also, too, with the addition of paddle tennis here, it's really grown as a sport, and the demand to have those courts cleared in a timely manner after snow is those three things is what I've tried to do to sell the need to keep staff on throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you haven't had to assess the membership for all this work that you've done, part of that is the fact that you have a big crew throughout the wintertime to get the work done. That's huge. So let's see. We talked a lot about the greens work that you've done, but you've also done a lot of regrassing in fairways and trying to gain some consistency there, because it was a hodgepodge on the existing fairways, right? You some ryegrass, some bentgrass.
Yeah, the fairways. When I arrived here in 2010. Predominantly ryegrass. There were a few that were regrassed. I believe 1995, there was a lot of winter kill in this area. I was still in middle school then.
Yeah, we were young.
So as we've closed the hole, we've regrassed the fairways. I mean, we've 007 bentgrass in the fairways. Good upright growth pattern. Our average handicap here, I believe, is like a 13 or 14. So we're not trying to mow fairways at a quarter inch because most of those people aren't going to be able to hit out of a line that tight. So we're at 400 right now. And yeah, as we've drawn that in the seasons, in the shoulder seasons, it's worked out. Now, again, we're seeding these fairways pretty late, and you have some sales guys come in and they see what they're doing, and I'm sure that I know they roll their eyes, but it's worked. And it's not to say that every spring hasn't been without rolling the ball in the fairways, but you try and take the long-term view as best as you can, and you talk about as fungicides are going to go up, as the cost of labor goes up, as fertilizers go up. To have those new grasses is going to help. What I say, flatten the curve in terms of budget increases. Trying to keep things in check, because certainly I think every golf course is experiencing some budget increases over the last 18 months, but really over the last 5 years is costs just continue to rise.
Now, again, not an Earthworks commercial, but I know that you have for a long time utilized the late fall feed of granular across this golf course, 822 particularly.
Yep. Right around Thanksgiving time.
And you have new plants, in the ground. That goes a long way for hardening them off and allowing those root systems to establish, so that you can come out and play on those newly seeded areas in the spring.
Absolutely, yeah. And as we better balance the soils, I mean, we've been able to reduce our inputs, and so we actually only do a quarter pound of N right now in dormant feed compared to a pound when we got here.
Wow, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's not as much revenue for you guys, but your boss just tells me to go out wider, right? So now we dormant feed our rough. So
well, it's true.
We're using the same quantities, and then the members are getting better playing surfaces.
Yeah, you're able to use it in more places, and that's so big. Exactly that, because especially like you say, you're already over 20,000 rounds, and we're just through August. Like the whole golf course needs love, because the carts are going everywhere. The other thing that you utilize is the liquid product C3, and I know even this summer you've said, like, I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing out of this product. Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so exiting 2020, I mean, I was very hypersensitive to what was coming as a result of single riders all of 2020 and increased rounds, and what was 2021 going to bring, because I felt like we weren't going to see the fallout from that until probably like July of 2021. So I really and talked to a lot of people, yourself included, about how to be as proactive as possible to prevent that, to combat the rounds. I mean, we are about 87% cart rounds here, and for 4 months last year they were riding on their own, and as the course gets busier, you don't have the time to even syringe fairways. So what could we do to make our fairways as good as we could? And you talked me into trying this product, and as I told both you and Joel, a few weeks ago now, I mean, it really, I think, was a big tool and really helped us get through the last 90 days. As here we sit in September. Every year seems to get more difficult with the weather. And warmer. I mean, I think we're close to 40 days now, over 90.
Oh my gosh.
And we went from August 5th to, I think, September 2nd, where the nighttime temperatures didn't get below in the 70s. So grass was tired. And
I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah. So it's hot down here.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a great tool to really help us get through and manage the cart rounds. And we don't do a lot of fairway syringing, and so yeah, I can't. I definitely plan to use it in the future,
and something that a lot of superintendents have seen with this product, and you've seen it as well. You say is that that the worm casts are just not as big of an issue as they used to be.
Yeah, I don't know how much you're allowed to say, right? Because
right.
earthworms are sensitive, but certainly it's reduced the casting significantly, and just actually ran out of our big tote and ordered enough now to get through a couple fall sprays.
Because it's important.
Correct. Yeah. October is traditionally really bad with worms, and the carts are just going to smear those castings,
and the rollers, and
the demand for year-round playability continues to increase. So yeah, we plan to use it probably right up through Thanksgiving.
Okay, excellent.
And hopefully it continues to suppress them.
Yeah. Well, Greg, I mean, we really covered a lot, and I feel as though you imparted a lot of knowledge on what you've done here and what you were able to do in-house. Of course, it's over a long period of time, but that's what we do, right? Like we're managing land, and it doesn't happen overnight. So and you've gotten it done here, and the place is an entirely different golf course from when you started in 2010. So something that I'm saying to you should be very proud of yourself.
I appreciate that.
You're quite welcome, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
my pleasure.
You got it, buddy. See you later.